salam kebajikan. The COVID-19 pandemic that emerged in early 2020 in Indonesia made the economic situation of Indonesia uncertain, or could be said as not in a good condition. Nevertheless, if compared to other countries, the economic growth of Indonesia is in a better condition. It grows 7.0% on the second quarter of 2021, according to the data of the Ministry of Finance. One of the sectors that contributes the most to this growth is the micro, small, and medium enterprises, which in it is the family business. We are delighted to welcome all of you on this webinar that will be discussing about Family Business 101. I would like to welcome everyone who joined the webinar, but let me mention specifically Ketua Umum Perhimpunan Inti Bapak Teddy Sugianto, PLT Sekjen Perhimpunan Inti Bapak Chandra Yap, Ketua Inti DKI Jakarta Bapak Iwayan Suparmin beserta jajaran pengurus, para pimpinan wilayah Perhimpunan Inti, anggota Perhimpunan Inti, pimpinan perusahaan rekanan Perhimpunan Inti, Kalbis Institute dan I3L, seluruh dosen Kalbis Institute dan I3L, seluruh pimpinan dan dosen dari Universitas Ciputra Surabaya. Pembicara pada hari ini yakni Bapak Randy Setiawan, Ketua Generasi Muda Perhimpunan Inti Bali 2014 hingga 2018, dan Sri Datuk Dr. Hau, Founder of Agape ATP Corporation. Juga yang terakhir, last but not least, Professor John Bong, Program Leader of MM in Sustainable Development Kalbis Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now listen to Bapak Naik Henok Parmenas, SHMM, as Director of Kalbis Institute, as the keynote speaker on this webinar. Pak John, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Monica. So good afternoon, everyone here. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam sejahtera. Selamat sore dan salam hearts and minds. Satu salam yang memang selalu didengungkan di lingkungan Kalbis Institute untuk menggambarkan bahwa kita ingin menciptakan lulusan bukan saja good in intellectual in their minds, but also in characters in their hearts. All right, so I'm so excited for this evening event because this event is really, really important for us. Usually we have business in family, but I think there's some phenomenal incidents in our world. Saya beberapa kali mendapatkan pengalaman, salah satunya seperti ini. Saya akan mengawali satu kejadian yang sangat fenomenal sekali mengenai family business. Tanggal 8 Juni tahun ini, saya punya teman di mana orang tuanya meninggal di Los Angeles, meninggalkan satu usaha pabrik di Tangerang yang memiliki karyawan 100 orang lebih, kemudian pabrik yang cukup besar dan cukup produktif, tetapi setelah tanggal 8 Juni itu, setelah pemiliknya meninggal dunia, ternyata anak-anaknya tidak mau untuk meneruskan usaha tersebut. Padahal usaha tersebut sebetulnya sangat profitable, kemudian juga cukup besar, mesinnya cukup baik, dan hasil produksinya juga cukup terkenal. Sangat disayangkan sekali karena pabrik itu harus ditutup, kemudian juga menutup mata pencaharian lebih dari 100 orang, bahkan mungkin lebih impact-nya akan lebih banyak dari itu ya, karena menutup satu usaha artinya akan menutup banyak juga mata pencaharian orang. Itu family business, Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semua. Tetapi ternyata karena tidak ada generasi yang bisa meneruskan bisnis tersebut, maka bisnis tersebut harus mati. Kemudian juga ada beberapa teman-teman saya juga yang menyayangkan karena dia sudah memiliki usaha cukup besar, dia membuat banyak sekali towers di Indonesia, ya sekitar 100 tower untuk internet di seluruh Indonesia per tahun dengan profit sekitar 50 miliar per tahun, tapi perusahaan ini diambang kehancuran karena tidak ada keluarga yang berniat untuk meneruskan. Anak-anaknya tidak mau meneruskan, padahal anak-anaknya sudah disekolahkan di luar negeri, di Amerika, di Eropa, dan lain-lain. Dan ini sebetulnya sejalan sekali dengan apa yang saya baca di beberapa literatur, ya, di mana setiap usaha bisnis yang dimiliki oleh generasi pertama itu hanya 30% yang diteruskan oleh generasi kedua. Bahkan only 12% yang akan diteruskan oleh generasi ketiga. Dan yang diteruskan sampai ke generasi keempat itu hanya 4%. So you can imagine, satu bisnis yang sangat maju ternyata akan tergerus terus, sampai generasi keempat hanya 4% yang bisa maju. Ya, kalau di Indonesia kita bisa lihat beberapa perusahaan family business yang semakin besar, ya kita bisa lihat ada Sampurna, ada Sinarmas, ada Agung Podomoro, dan termasuk juga Kalbe. Dan saya rasa itu menjadi salah satu tolak ukur kita untuk melihat bagaimana kualitas dari bisnis keluarga ini harus bisa dipertahankan kalau memang mau berkembang maju. Apalagi kita mendapatkan informasi juga bahwa 95% bisnis keluarga di Asia Tenggara termasuk Indonesia, yang hanya bertahan sampai generasi kedua. 95% bisnis keluarga itu hanya bertahan di generasi kedua. Artinya nggak akan everlasting. Ya, kalaupun sekarang ada mungkin nggak sustain. So ini sangat penting sekali untuk kita ketahui, apalagi di middle income di Indonesia itu cukup besar, dan itu diwakili oleh bisnis-bisnis keluarga. Kalau kita tidak bisa memahami bisnis keluarga, maka saya yakin hasilnya akan sama seperti hasil research yang tadi. Hanya 30% masuk ke generasi kedua. Akhirnya bisnis itu harus mati. Dan bisa dibayangkan kalau bisnis itu mati, artinya akan menutup juga mata pencaharian yang lain. So, saya berterima kasih sekali untuk para pembicara yang sudah bisa hadir di tempat ini. Ada Dr. Ho, so how are you? Pak Randy, Prof. John Fong, thank you so much for your time to be our speakers in this precious event. So we would like to know and gather all informations and knowledge from your field. Of course, ini adalah satu pengalaman yang real yang akan dibagikan kepada kita. Walaupun kita sebetulnya di dunia akademik, ya, tetapi saya rasa Kalbis Institute tidak membedakan antara dunia akademik dengan dunia industri. Bahkan kita bisa menjadi bridge atau jembatan antara pendidikan dan juga dunia real. Dan oleh karena itu kami mau menjadi institusi pendidikan pertama yang menyediakan kualitas mengenai family business. Ya. So acara ini akan menjadi satu tonggak awal di mana Kalbis Institute juga akan mengembangkan satu pendidikan yang baru, khususnya mengenai family business yang di mana diperlukan di Indonesia ini. So thank you so much for the speakers. Saya excited sekali untuk mendengar setiap masukan, pembelajaran, dan saya yakin kita bisa belajar banyak pada sore hari ini. Dan mari Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semua, please prepare your notes and your pen. So jangan cuma listening, but you have to write down the notes, and then after that you can implement. All right, that's all from me. Please enjoy this webinar. Thank you so much. I give it back to Monica.
Don't forget to write down and implement what we heard, what we listened, and what we learned from this webinar. That's from Bapak Naik Henok Parmenas. Thank you, Pak John. And up next to speak is Bapak Chandra Yap as the PLT Sekjen Perhimpunan Inti. Pak Chandra Yap, the floor is yours. Silakan.
Ya, thank you Monica. Pertama-tama saya menyampaikan permohonan maaf dari Ketua Umum Inti Pak Teddy Sugianto. Ada kendala teknis jadi beliau tidak bisa bergabung padahal sudah siap dari jam 1 tadi. Saya sendiri masih di perjalanan menuju ke Jakarta dari Tangerang. Tapi pertama-tama izinkan saya memang menyampaikan salam dari Pak Teddy Sugianto dan beserta segenap keluarga besar Perhimpunan Inti. Terima kasih kepada Pak Henok, Rektor Kalbis. Ini acara kita yang pertama, Pak. Semoga bisa terus berlanjut. Kami semua mendoakan kita semua bisa tetap semangat, tetap kuat melewati pandemi yang ada ini, tapi kita tetap terus berkarya bersama yang diangkat pada siang hari ini sangat menarik mengenai pengelolaan bisnis keluarga yang memang menjadi satu basic bisnis keluarga besar orang-orang Tionghoa di Indonesia merupakan bisnis keluarga. Dan satu hal yang menjadi catatan dari Pak Teddy tadi, kejujuran, kerja keras, dan pelayanan yang baik merupakan modal utama orang Tionghoa dalam berbisnis. Tapi di luar dari itu memang ada seni atau ilmu menjaga hubungan baik dengan pelanggan dan menjaga loyalitas, membangun, memperkuat bagaimana akhirnya bisnis itu bisa bertahan bertahun-tahun. Tapi memang tantangan utama dalam mengelola bisnis keluarga adalah bagaimana suksesi dari generasi pertama dan generasi kedua bisa berjalan dengan mulus, seperti tadi Pak Henok sampaikan. Makanya hari ini kami mengirimkan salah satu kader terbaik kami, anak muda, Randy Setiawan, sangat terkenal di Bali, sekarang domisili di Surabaya, salah satu tokoh yang cukup berpengaruh. Ya kita harapkan hari ini kita juga banyak mendapat ilmu dari Dr. Hao, bagaimana secara ilmu pengetahuan bisa memadukan bisnis konvensional keluarga dengan ilmu pengetahuan hari ini. Sekali lagi saya juga mengucapkan terima kasih kepada kedua narasumber, kepada moderator Monica, dan juga kepada Ketua INTI DKI Jakarta Pak Iwayan Suparmin yang sangat mendukung acara kita pada siang hari ini. Terima kasih, selamat siang, selamat berdiskusi.
Terima kasih, thank you Pak Chandra on behalf of Bapak Teddy Sugianto as the Ketua Umum Perhimpunan INTI or Indonesia Tionghoa. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to discuss and listen to the presentations of our distinguished speakers. It's such an honor for me to be able to introduce our speakers to all of you. Please let me introduce founder of Agape ATP Corporation, Sri Datuk Dr. Hao, a well-respected entrepreneur with a heart of benevolence and a gift to inspire. As one of the most influential business leaders in the country, Dr. Hao owns various public listed companies and currently holds top positions in numerous companies. He has successfully grown his businesses over the past 35 years, consisting of 38 successful companies, which span across multiple industries such as investment, property development, logistics, wellness, information technology, digital media, and film production house, as well as network marketing. Among his portfolios house, the investment in green energy sector in Vietnam has paid off with the company's turnover amounted to $200 million in year 2020. As a man with forward-looking vision, he consistently nurtures and incubated promising businesses to achieve long-term sustainability. Please give a round of applause for Sri Datuk Dr. Hao.
Hi, how are you guys?
How are you?
Thank you,
Dr. Hao?
Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak John, is it? Just now they did the first opening speaker.
Yes.
Pak
Yes.
Naik Heno Pamanas.
Yes.
Walaupun saya asal dari Malaysia, selamat petang semua kawan-kawan yang dari Indonesia. But today my sharing is going to be English. Yeah, I
Yes.
hope everyone try to be slow and steady. And of course, first and foremost, thank you very much for Professor Dr. John Wong, my good friend, invited me to share some of the family business in Indonesia. Now, according to the statistics in Indonesia itself, about 90% of the public listed company are family business. And that is wider, all the family-owned business in public listed company have actually created a lot of opportunity for job. Beside that, I do understand based on the statistic, those family-owned company generate the GDP almost about 80% of the country. So to speak, all the family-owned business in Indonesia play a very critical and wider role. As just now, what John has mentioned earlier, for those after the third generation or beyond, only 3% left. Imagine, if this do not actually handle properly, the future of the economy of the Indonesia, we might actually facing a lot of problem. I don't know whether, John, you agree what I'm saying or not. Meaning the next generation is going to be a challenge. Who actually is going to be taking over the company. That's why I have, based on my experience, and I have been advised, most of my friends in Malaysia, they're also family-owned business. The problem is that, and we Chinese always say, Fubukol Santai. I suppose many of you are Chinese Indonesia. For the first generation, the grandfather actually is the founder who formed the company. The next generation is the father who managed the company. But the third generation, the son, the grandson, actually is the one who destroyed the whole company. This is what our Chinese say. This is all because it's still due to the first transition. I have seen a lot of company, the failure to transit the whole so-called legacy or empire. You know why? Now, I do understand even it happened in Indonesia. Now, for me, anyone who wants to start a business at a family, the first thing you have to plan when you want to exit. I look at I'll show you some of the slide. Just a minute. You see, today I'm going to talk about keeping your family business in long term. Also, how actually you want to pass your company into the next generation. As a static and the family business, you look at this as what Pak Juan has mentioned earlier. This is exactly the truth. It happened to a whole entire American, even the ASEAN country. You see, I try to repeat what the speaker just shared. 30% of family business survive into the second generation. This is exactly what Pak Juan just mentioned. And 12% survive into the third generation. Am I right? And actually now only 3%, is not 4% of family business make it into the fourth generation and beyond. Imagine now this statistic is applied not only Indonesia, applied to other ASEAN countries as well as US American as well. Imagine, bayangkan, now for the next, most of now are supposed to be the second generation. Imagine the second generation, only 30% can survive. Then up to the next generation, then the public company in Indonesia, 90% are family owned. So to speak, by the time the third generation actually take over by maybe a foreign country, all the big giant from other country, meaning most of the Indonesian company owned by the family might actually give to the hand of others. But this is we need to pay attention of all the businesses. As I mentioned earlier, they contribute almost 80% of the GDP of the country. The whole economic, actually, Indonesian economy was solely rely on those of family business. I would say, all the family business are playing their very vital role to boost the economy of Indonesia. And also happy to say that, all the top 500, the richest guys, I think a few more than 10 are from Indonesia. I think you guys are doing great at the present moment. But my concern, how long or how far they can sustain. Maybe the moment when they pass to the next generation, you might not in the 500 S&P company, in the world. That's why I always talk to most of the company you have a family-owned office. Even I myself, have been partnership with the family. They have a big trouble to pass to the second generation because, as you see, now this is the key factor, the critical success key factor in order you want to maintain or you want to what I call to keep your family business for long term. This is very critical transition period. You see, most of the company that have a problem like, you're the one who actually have the company and your children, they are all not starting overseas. The moment when they come back, there's the problem. The moment they come back, and then you actually intended to pass to your second generation. But the problem, they don't have any experience about running the company. So before even you transit, you have to think carefully. Are they actually capable to run your company? Are they willing to take over your business? But the problem, most of our Chinese, even the ASEAN country, the problem is that they do not actually have an open heart to their children. Are you willing to take over my company, or are you willing to success my business? Without understanding their willingness, and just like putting them in your company. This is the thing. It happened 90% of the family business company. So what I'm trying to say, you have to plan, when actually you want to exit and then pass your business to your next generation. 5 years, 10 years. This is the problem. Most of the company, they do not plan properly. Now, secondly, now even after you have the next generation to take over your company, there's a problem of they do not have the proper a company structure, to formalize the how does the structure look like. For example, few steps like I'm more concerned about most of the family business, they do not have a proper shareholder agreement, to specify what are the rule to play within the family members. Sometimes the family member, they can be uncle, cousin, brothers. They used to be happen. The rule of the individual shareholder do not well specify. That is critical. And secondly, you need to formalize a council member, family council member, where you have a dialogue, open heart, to talk what are the problem you are facing, rather than you keep on, keep whatever thing you do not want to talk open heart among the members. The problem with the founder, normally they think like, because we are a family member, we should understand each other. But actually, when you come to a business, it's entirely different. Now, this I'm talking about. Now, the third thing is the strategy, strategizing the planning. Whether you are the private company, a public stock company, or a family business company, it's the same. I would say that this is pretty an important rule as well. They do not have a proper what I call the strategic planning, like what is your company mission before you table about your vision. But the problem is that a lot of company, actually I hold a doctorate in total quality management. I would not compromise in anything about quality. Now the problem with the company, they have a lot of mission and vision, I'm sure. But those mission and vision, as you know that even you get any external consultant, they will come into the company, the first thing, what is your mission? Then you will create your vision. But to me, 90% of the company, they have a mission and vision, but just hanging the wall, just a statement, where the mission and vision, they cannot execute according to what they want. You see the point? Even that I've been traveling around the company, they put the big mission and vision and hang the wall. But to me, that is only the statement on the wall, but they cannot execute it. So to me, when you have a mission and vision, then you have to determine what is the core value. Even though you have the core value, but the problem is it's the statement, but nobody actually have to compromise in how actually you want to act according to what the management team, where they have set up the vision or mission and the core value. And subsequently, then you're talking about the planning. What is your overview summary? Just like, you have a lot of like, what they call a lot of department. Okay, for example, how you define into process department, and then you have a development department, and then you have a people department. Now, this is all the strategic planning. You need to do it as an initiative, how actually you run on it. But the problem is most of the family business company, they do not have this a proper flow. They take for granted, just like today, I feel like doing things, then next day I'm going to do it. This is the big problem. Now, when you look at this strategic planning, I'm glad to hear this. Just now I look at your video, you talk about, some heart, the mind. Now here, you look at this, sustaining for your generation, this is a tree, yeah? Ini pokok kan? Pokok, right? Yeah. I try to see some bahasa, yeah? Now underneath, you see this is a root. Am I right? Anyone can see that? But John, you see that? And this the pokok yang tubuh. You see right. how strong is this plant? It's all depend on the roots. Am I right? The underground roots. Now, what I call before you set a strategy, the company have to have a proper mindset. The root is the mindset of people. And on top of this, all the plant, the tree, we call the strategy. Without a proper mindset, your tree will never grow. But masalah dia, most of the company, they only focus on the strategy, but forget about the mindset of the people. Even that you go about any family business or traditional business, this is very vital. Now, when I talk about mindset, before your strategy planning, you need to have a strong, extreme ownership mindset. When I say ownership, any individual, especially the family business, regardless you are the son of the boss or you are the relative, you have to be fully responsible and accountable for what actually you are doing for your work. If the mindset is not correct, there could be had a lot of problem among the teammates. So far, for my understanding, for most of the family business, 90%, They are playing an internal politics, meaning to say, if I am the family of the founder, everyone thought they are the number one in the company. They are doing a micro management. They are, instead of micro managing the process, they are micro managing the people. Now, this is the disaster. Most of the company fail. I repeat. Now, the mindset, anyone of this level, especially the top management, of course, we need a so-called micro management. But what I'm trying to say, the micro management, we need to micro managing the process, the entire process, but not the people. You see, when you're micro managing your people might feel annoyed, because that you are the family members, you do not know what we're going on. So what I'm trying to say, besides your managing your process, as we know that the strategic planning one is a very important role is to the KPI. End of the day is the KPI, the key performance index. Now, without managing the process, how are you going to managing your KPI? The problem with the present the management style, I can say a lot. Instead of managing a process, they are managing people. Just what Pak John just now, you see why most of the family business field is all because of this akar yang ada masalah ini, yang ada masalah. Before you think about strategy. Now, once you have all this, then we come to innovation. And of course, through my experience, most of the family owned business, they always based on their core business. Now, during the grandfather time, maybe 20, 30 years ago, the second generation do not know how the new technology, especially ever seen a company start facing problem ever since the 1.5 years ago when the COVID pandemic. Sorry, I repeat, the present COVID pandemic, everyone is suffering and struggling, 1.5 years, but still a lot of family business that do not how to cope with the present disaster. As you know, now this will actually accelerate, all the company, you have to think of, transit some of your business into the tech company innovation. Like me, about 6 years ago, I've been in China for 30 years. I've been in Taiwan and Hong Kong for 30 years. And 6 years ago, I already predicted, most of the conventional or traditional business is hard to survive. And I sold most of my business, and then I invested in the one very high-tech company. I invested almost about $8 billion US, and now is the time for us, to transit by integrating our business into a new era of technology like digital marketing, e-commerce. You see, like dekat sekarang dekat Indonesia kan, there's what Gojek. You see the Gojek, is it? For logistics. Now they're doing very well. This is talking about the new generation, about the new tech. Even in Malaysia, Grab also we are participating with the Grab local. This I'm talking about. You need to, because the future tech, you're talking about digital marketing, we disrupt the entire economy and the market. So we have to think into this. Even if your second generation, when your father, sorry, again, when your father passed over the company, your core business, you have to change your mindset now to go into the new technology. It is a future, because most of the buyer, the behavior, the customer behavior already changed. People might just what I call at home. They hardly go to the shopping or retail center to buy the product. I'm sure they happen in Indonesia. That is our future. Yeah. And the last one, not least, you're talking about the empowerment now. The problem again, I've seen a lot of business of family business owned. Now, the father, they do not have the clear transition period. The moment when the founder asks the next generation to come to work, but still the founder is still in control. They do not empower the absolute authority to the next generation. Then even your next generation might have a problem when they want to make a decision, and the team manager might not listen to your second generation before actually you pass by. You know why? Because at the end of the day, you are the one to hold the absolute power to make any decision. That's why I said you need from that transition, and then you need, after that, the strategy, you need to form what they call the council member and also the shareholder agreement, who actually end of the day you want to pass on your company, and you have to work on the timeline when actually you want to exit and then pass to your next generation. Meaning to say you have to start, to empower whatever the next generation to take over your business, to make the decision. Otherwise, no matter what you say, or even your next generation to say, nobody will follow. As that you are the king. It's not your next generation. So no matter what, end of the day, when I come again, no matter what, after you have all this, end of the day, you still need to think about when is the time you want to give away your power. Is it like Super Lee Ka-shing, in Hong Kong, Li Jia-chen, everyone know that? He also has a problem with the two sons, one, actually the elder son is supposed to success his company, but the second son might have a problem because everyone said, everything what you have is all depend on your father. And then the second son, I'm not interested actually to success is the father business. It happened to other company as well. Now, having said so, now to summarize, because I only got Monica, I only have 20 minutes to share. I suppose I think I need about 1 hour to share, but just to share within the parameter what actually happening to the family business. Now, to summarize through my experience, it's not that I just shared 20 minutes. You're able to understand the whole structure. We need a lot of detailing, brainstorming. Different company, different family business, they have a different kind of culture. Then we have to tailor-make what kind of culture. But this is the basic thing, the fundamental element, the most critical of success factor in order to sustain your business, in order to what I call to have a business for long term. I must say you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have all this, I'm sure you do not have your problem in the company, which I have done a lot. Most of the friends also, I give free advice to the company, and then I go to the company, have a training and free advice from them. The business or the family, I would say, it's a matter of time to be in line. Again, still why I put transition period is the most important thing. This need to be clear. Yeah. I suppose, Monica, my 20 minutes.
Yes, Sri Dato.
Okay,
Dr.
before
How?
that, the next one I want to show you the other second slide. Now, this is very important. Anyone, if you're the what I call, you are now running for the family business, you have to ask yourself these 5 critical questions. Okay.
Okay.
If you want to
We
take
will go
over,
back. Yes.
yeah, before the empowerment, you will say, how can I motivate my manager to drive the bottom line? Now, always remember, you can't run the company by your own. You need a manager, to understand the first thing that, as I mentioned earlier, the mindset before you implement any strategy plan, mindset or your ownership. You are fully responsible and accountable for your work. Yeah. And second thing, who can I trust to run the business as usual? And how's my family influence the business? Where can I go for guidance? Will I ever be able to retire? And this is important. You need to get the independent advisor, the consultant to guide you. Yeah. Then from there, you have the proper, especially talking about a listed company, because a lot of corporate governance required by the SEC, SC. Yeah, because basically that's all for my 20-minute sharing. Monica.
Yes, Dr. How, we will go back to you again for the question and answer session, actually. So hold on. Thank you, Dr. How. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you our next speaker, Bapak Randy Setiawan, Agency Director and Ketua Generasi Muda Perhimpunan Inti Bali from 2014 until 2018. He starts his career as a financial planner service in 2010, and then in 2011, got the gelar jabatan CFP professional from Universitas Indonesia and FPSB. In 2011, he is a co-founder of agency, and 2012, he is an agency director in Prudential, and in 2014, Ketut Gema Inti Bali. And then in 2015, Young Entrepreneur Exchange to China from China's ambassador. And also in 2017, he is awarded with the Agency of the Year Prudential Indonesia. In 2019, as a co-founder of MRT Phoenix, member of MRT Group, and in 2020 creates YouTube channel Randy Setiawan for Edar Edukasi Asuransi. And right now in 2021, Pak Randy is an agency director. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bapak Randy Setiawan.
Halo semuanya, halo Monica. Sepertinya saya pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya buat teman-teman juga lebih familiar dan mungkin bisa lebih enak ya, gampang di-ngertiin. Oke, tadi mungkin sebelumnya saya mengucapkan terima kasih dulu ya oleh Pak Henok selaku rektornya Kalbis, keluarga besar Kalbis, Perhimpunan Inti yang sudah mempercayakan saya untuk sharing di acara pertama ya, kerjasama terhadap Kalbis ya, dan teman-teman semua nih ya. Tadi sudah dijelaskan keren banget ya, teknis banget oleh Pak Dr. Hao. Nah, sekarang saya nih bagian curhatan nih ya. Curhatan hati para millennials nih ya. Saya akan sharing pakai slide. Kita langsung aja. Oke, di sini saya akan sharing tentang bentar ya. Saya ini dulu matikan. Oke, saya akan sharing tentang the untold feeling ya, by curhatan hati millennials ya. Karena ya ini banyak cerita juga sih di balik bagaimana apa yang terjadi dulu sama apa yang terjadi sekarang, karena jadi sebuah kisah bagaimana family business terjadi ya. Kita langsung aja. About me tadi mungkin sedikit sudah dijelasin oleh Monica, thank you ya. Mungkin biar lebih gampang saya kasih share video about my profile ya. Kita lihat aja. Hi, I'm Randy. In 2009, I decided to partner with Prudential Corporation Indonesia, leaving my comfort zone and my family business background, such as jewelry, real estate, construction, mining, electronic, and galleries. Actually, it was not an easy decision. Why do I choose Prudential as my partner? It is because from Prudential I can bring tremendous impact to people's lives and well-being. In 2010, my net worth is 600 million rupiah. And now in 2018, it is increased to 15 billion rupiah. But actually, it's not my ultimate reason partnering with Prudential. Through Prudential, I can bring people who previously never been abroad to travel the world. Traveling to 50 cities in 5 continents. It is an amazing experience to travel with them together. My key to success is work hard, never give up, and just do it. For me, success is not about how much money you make, it is about how many people whose life have been changed because of you. So if your life has been transformed because of others, make sure others' life have been changed by you. I'm Randy Setiawan, and that's my story. Oke, itu sedikit profile ya buat teman-teman tahu dari family business background, dari sekian banyak bisa dibilang industri ya, segitu banyak sampai akhirnya saya berada di saat sekarang itu di agency director. Nah, di sini saya mau quote sedikit ya. Ini adalah satu quote yang saya bawa dari pertama kali saya terjun di dunia bisnis, yaitu jika kamu bertumbuh karena orang lain, pastikan orang lain itu bertumbuh karenamu ya. Karena bagi saya sukses itu bukan uang ya, tetapi bagi saya pribadi ya gimana caranya saya juga bisa berdampak lah, kasih impact buat orang banyak. Nah, kita langsung aja deh, kita masuk nih, gimana sih cerita kisah ya, dulu dengan sekarang. Nah, gimana dulu lulus kuliah, apa yang terjadi, sama sekarang apa yang mungkin saya lakukan, atau yang jadinya seperti apa sih sekarang dari dulu yang terjadi. Oke. Kita ngomong yang sekarang aja ya, nanti setelah itu baru kita flashback. Oke, kita ngomong sekarang. Sekarang ini bisa dibilang saya sedang mendevelop ya atau sudah developing for more than 700 agency leaders at MMT Group. Ya, jadi kebetulan kita ada acara tahunan ya, dan di sana dihadiri oleh agency leaders ya. Walaupun di bawah mereka masih akan ada tim-tim kecil lagi, tetapi ini adalah satu acara yang I'm quite happy. Kenapa? Karena I create this event from scratch. Jadi benar-benar dari zero kita buat event ini, the concept, logo, terus isi di dalamnya konten segala macam kita buat. Nah kebetulan saya pribadi selaku project director-nya juga, biar supaya lebih teman-teman tahu seperti apa, kita nonton lagi deh ya. Pokoknya sama saya nontonnya enak nih, nggak banyak teknis ya. Jadi teman-teman lebih tahu, oh jadi acara kayak gini ini yang dilakukan ya. Yuk kita lihat aja langsung.
Big vision, strong leadership number one.
National Leaders Conference 2020. Tahun Kecepatan Pertumbuhan dalam Harmoni.
Grow faster together in harmony.
Saturday adalah Great Saturday. Maka Monday adalah Amazing Monday. MRT Group mencanangkan 388 miliar.
Oh, you came and tucked your way into my life. Oh, you look at me in ways I never loved. With you, I know that this is all, so I don't need to take it slow. If you want me, then I believe that there's a simple remedy. We don't need no miracle. I think we've seen it all. Just make the call. I'll come running over. We don't need no miracle. It's unconditional. Just make the call, and I'll be yours. I'll come running over. We don't need no miracle. It's unconditional. Just make the call, and I'll be yours. Don't need a miracle.
Nah, mungkin teman-teman bisa ngelihat ya, maksudnya gila seru banget acaranya ya. Kebetulan ini sebelum pandemik, dan sebenarnya buat acara seperti itu juga sedikit break the boundaries ya, karena sebelumnya acara kita tahu acara conference itu ya pasti harusnya yang formal, tapi di sini saya berusaha gimana caranya acara ini bisa excited ya untuk anak-anak muda segala macam. Nah, terjadilah seperti itu, dan itu baru pertama kali kita ngadakan kick off party yang nggak pernah kita lakukan. But itu dulu, itu sekarang ya, yang mungkin teman-teman bisa lihat, oh ya ini kan sekarang ya. Tapi gimana sih dulu apa yang terjadi sampai akhirnya bisa jadi seperti sekarang. Nah, hari ini saya mungkin di sini baru kita lebih bahas lebih curhatan hatinya ada di sini ya. Kita langsung mulai aja. Yang pertama, di sini saya akan buat secara milestone ya. Di sini saya buat 2010. Yang pertama adalah lulus kuliah. Jadi sebenarnya saya mau cerita bahwa sebagai anak muda ada milestone di dalam hidupnya akan terjadi sebuah persimpangan ya. Maksudnya persimpangan gimana? Yang pertama sebenarnya dari sebelum kuliah, lulus SMA itu adalah satu persimpangan untuk anak muda di mana pasti akan galau, aku mau masuk jurusan mana. Menentukan jurusan itu adalah sebuah milestone untuk anak muda. Nah, tetapi di sini saya moving forward aja bahwa lulus kuliah ya, di saat kita sebenarnya orang bilang, kuliah itu masa-masa yang paling seru segala macam ya. Tetapi kita udah lulus sidang ya, sidang akhir dan kita sudah dikatakan lulus, sudah wisuda. Ternyata pulang rumah itu adalah disidang kembali oleh keluarga. Ya, maksudnya gimana? Ya, selaku anak muda ini sesuai pengalaman ya. Pulang ke rumah sudah sidang skripsi dan sudah setengah mati, sampai rumah disidang lagi sama keluarga. Dikasih pertanyaan begini. Jadi kamu mau kerja apa? Nah, ya di sidang seperti itu sebenarnya ya cukup sebenarnya intinya adalah ya lu mau bisnis yang mana ya, intinya begitu ya. Tetapi cukup halus ya nih. Mau kerja apa? Tapi di sanalah mulai bingung nih. Nah, sebagian dari teman-teman ya, mungkin ada juga beberapa yang mungkin family bisnisnya ada yang punya toko retail atau yang punya distributor segala macam. Tetapi pengalaman karena family bisnis saya juga ada yang toko, ada juga menyarankan, Ren, mau nggak sih jadi kasir, maksudnya jadi jaga toko gitu ya dia. Tapi kan ya namanya jaga toko, ujungnya cuma duduk ya di kasir ya, terima uang, kasih kembalian, that's it, beres ya. Tutup toko, tinggal packing uangnya, setor, nah intinya gitu ya. Tapi kan intinya, ya kalau seandainya kata cuma jadi kasir atau jaga toko, yang ngapain juga harus kuliah jauh-jauh kayak gitu ya. Kuliah tinggi-tinggi ngapain kalau ujung-ujung harus jaga toko. Itu sempat terpikirkan ya. Lalu berikutnya ada juga yang disuruh bantu pegang perusahaan orang tua. Nah ini kan yang jadi tema saat ini ya. Bagi saya itu ibarat melanjutkan skripsi orang yang kita nggak tahu judulnya apa, tapi langsung kita melanjutin dari tengah bab, yang kita nggak tahu ini mulainya dari mana, lalu ini harus ngapain, tiba-tiba disuruh pegang aja perusahaannya yang kita nggak tahu. Nah ini 2010 benar-benar tahun di mana terjadi sebuah milestone buat generasi milenial ya. Lalu kita ngomong 2011 ya, 2011 saya pribadi ini puncaknya ya, puncak dalam arti oke, setelah saya terjun ke realita di dalam masuk dalam bisnis keluarga. Yang pertama ada kegalauan tingkat dewa. Maksudnya galau itu gimana? Ya galau di satu sisi harus menyamakan persepsinya orang tua, atau kadang juga ada galaunya gengsi ya. Ya kalau saya dikata bisnis orang tua, ini kita ngomong fair ya. Bisnis orang tua, wah, contoh kayaknya misalkan teman saya misalkan, dia yang punya Ismaya Group, keren banget ya, buat event DWP, dia punya food and beverage bisnis atau kayak ini. Nah kalau sekarang misalkan perusahaan orang tua adalah toko jualan pakaian dalam wanita, nah itu pasti akan galau. Gila nih masa, ya namanya anak muda pasti ada gengsi. Gila masa gue kenalan lu bisnis apa? Oh ya gue bisnis pakaian dalam wanita. Rasanya gimana gitu ya. Ya kalau seandainya kata cewek nggak apa-apa, cowok kan itu pasti ada galau ya. Nah itu pasti ada kegalauan antara apakah ini benar yang gua mau atau ini gua istilahnya lunas gitu. Ya udahlah, gua lahir di keluarga apa ya udah gua terusin, kayak istilahnya pasrah gitu ya. Itu ada. Lalu ada juga dikasih perusahaan, jabatan direksi, tapi suara nggak pernah didengar. Nah, ini mungkin curhatan juga ya, maksudnya, oke, lu jadi direksi, tetapi setiap kita mau buat sebuah keputusan, which is ya namanya milenial, pasti pengen dong punya kebanggaan, gue bisa memutuskan sesuatu dalam sebuah perusahaan, dan siapa tahu itu it works, karena kan kita tahu dunia sekarang seperti apa. Beda dengan dunianya orang tua gitu ya. Nah, disinilah kadang suara kita tuh nggak pernah dengar ya, entah karena mungkin kita masih belum banyak pengalaman ya, tetapi kan di sini bingung juga, kalau kita nggak dikasih kesempatan kita nggak punya pengalaman, kalau kita nggak punya pengalaman kita nggak dipandang, terus kita harus gimana nih? Nah bingung kan ya. Lalu ada lagi nih, keputusan orang tua itu sebenarnya keputusan presiden mutlak, jadi kita bilang ya sudah, kita kadang sudah kasih B, katakanlah, oh pendapat kita B ini bagus nih, ini ide bagus nih yang bisa zaman sekarang oke banget nih. Tapi akhirnya balik lagi perusahaan ke A karena intervensi dari orang tua. Jadi istilahnya gini, orang tua ngasih kita serahkan sebuah bisnis untuk kita handle, tetapi dia tidak sepenuhnya memberikan kita kepercayaan. Kadang diintervensi tengah-tengah dikasih tahu enggak, lakukan A. Ya udah, jadi tujuan kita di sini sebagai direksi apa? Kalau suara nggak didengar, kita bilang B juga ujung-ujung A, ya papi aja terusin, ngapain saya harus terusin gitu. Ya kan ada pikiran begitu ya. Nah, terus ini saya nggak tahu, mungkin teman-teman di sini ada juga yang merasakan kegalauan. Saya sebenarnya waktu bahas ini ya, nih bahas tentang hal ini di sosial media ya, ada beberapa teman saya yang akhirnya bilang, bener banget itu, masa gua ngurusin transfer pakai m-banking aja gua dimaki-maki, katanya harus pakai manual. Sama ya inilah curhatan hati para millennials ya. Berikut lagi, misalkan berhasil nih, kita melakukan sesuatu itu berhasil, tetapi yang dapat kredit itu pasti oh ya papi mami lah, karena kan dianggap cuma nerusin bisnis orang tua. Yang hebat tuh orang tuanya, karena orang tua udah jalanin sekian puluh tahun, padahal kita yang kasih ide, kita yang tapi yang dapat kredit orang tua ya sebenarnya nggak jadi masalah, tapi kan yang namanya millennials sometimes perlu pengakuan, perlu kredit bahwa ini kita loh gitu loh ya. Karena kalau enggak, ujung-ujung ya ngapain gue juga ini gitu ya. Nah itu kalau berhasil. Gimana kalau tidak berhasil? Kalau gagal, kita yang jadi kambing hitam. Ini gara-gara lu nih. Dulu papi jalanin 20 tahun nggak begini. Sekarang lu jalanin begini. Nah disinilah masa-masa di mana wow, ternyata family business itu tidak seindah yang dibilang, yang tinggal mewariskan langsung terima duit nggak ngapa-ngapain. Nah, itu tidak seperti itu ya. Ada challenging yang terjadi di mungkin ada yang setahun, ada yang 2 tahun, dari 3 tahun, mungkin bahkan lebih dari 3 tahun. Bahkan saya sempat sering diskusi dengan beberapa klien yang memang dia family business. Ya, itu pun dia sampai buka divisi baru yang memang dia harus handle semua, which is keluar dari bayang-bayang orang tua. Karena sebenarnya kita millennials tuh pengen loh kita keluar dari bayang-bayang orang tua. Supaya apa? Kita dapat pengakuan juga. Bukan artinya kita mau sok mandiri, enggak, tapi kita juga membutuhkan ruang untuk kita bisa belajar, untuk kita bisa mengeksplor apa yang sudah kita pelajari, apa yang menurut kita itu baik. Even kalaupun gagal, ya sudah, nggak apa-apa gitu loh ya. Nah, setelah 2011 memuncak, akhirnya oke, 2012 saya coba deh belajar. Saya coba untuk merendahkan frekuensi saya dan mencoba berdiri berada di posisinya orang tua. Jadi yang pertama, belajar untuk menyamakan halaman dengan orang tua, walaupun bisa dibilang susah banget ya. Kenapa? Kita sudah, seperti tadi contoh, kita udah mengenal namanya dunia digital. Orang tua sometimes mau upload gambar aja nanya, ya nggak salah, karena kan memang bukan dunianya, beda kalau kita sendiri mau, mungkin generasi milenial sekarang mau bikin layangan juga nanya orang tua juga ya tahu-tahu mungkin dalam hati ya. Tetapi ya inilah yang terjadi ya. Tetapi di sini kita belajar gimana sih nyamakan posisi kita ada di sepatunya orang tua. Kita harus bisa melihat apa sih visinya dia, apa sih misinya dia, kenapa bisnis ini dia buat, bagaimana visi misi perusahaan ini, gimana dia ke depannya mau kayak apa nih, goal dia apa dari bisnis ini. Nah, mulailah mencoba cari tahu apa yang orang tua mau. Setelah itu, minta kesempatan buat salah. Jadi dengan keberanian, saya bilang, boleh nggak kasih saya kesempatan untuk saya melakukan kesalahan. Tetapi kesalahannya bukan yang saya merugikan perusahaan sampai ratusan miliar atau ratusan juta ya, tetapi tetap ada batasan-batasannya. Tetapi minta izin untuk, kalau aku buat salah, please tolong jangan dimarahi. Tolong jangan aku dijudge. Kenapa? Tak balik. Selama papi misalkan buat bisnis ini, apakah papi tidak pernah buat salah? Nggak mungkin. Pasti pernah buat salah. Jadi please kasih saya kesempatan untuk, misalkan saya buat salah, it's okay, kita evaluasi. Tapi jangan dijudge atau disalahkan. Bahkan, ini kebiasaannya, kadang di depan teman-temannya lagi kumpul, ya ini gara-gara Reni nih, perusahaanku jadi kadang kita sebagai anak, oh gila di depan orang tua, di depan teman-teman ngomong kayak begitu. Kayaknya, aduh, ya. Nah, disinilah minta izin untuk, ya, tolong berikan aku kesempatan untuk aku bisa buat salah. Biarkan aku belajar seperti layaknya dulu papi waktu bangun bisnis gitu loh. Kenapa? Karena saya percaya bahwa manusia itu adalah makhluk yang beradaptasi, makhluk yang harus belajar. Tanpa belajar manusia nggak bisa ya. Tetapi saya percaya bahwa kalau belajar pasti bisa. Dulu kita lahir aja nggak bisa jalan, nggak bisa lari, tetapi karena kita belajar, mau jatuh kita jadi belajar. Nah, terus ini satu hal yang saya temukan secara tidak sengaja ya, yaitu jalan-jalan ke luar negeri adalah kesempatan terbaik ya untuk memberikan pandangan-pandangan tentang sistem bisnis. Kenapa? Saya yakin mungkin teman-teman di sini waktu nanti ke depannya mungkin pandemik berakhir atau zaman sebelumnya pernah ke luar negeri jalan-jalan diajak sama orang tua. Sebenarnya itulah saat-saat di mana kita paling enak untuk kita bertukar pikiran. Karena waktu jalan-jalan luar negeri, orang tua itu kan kalau di toko atau di perusahaan itu kadang mikirin bisnis itu sampai kadang kita mau nanya pun takut ya. Tapi kalau di luar negeri kan ya lumayan tenang, refreshing, pikiran kebuka. Nah ini saya sharing pengalamannya. Waktu papa saya itu kan adalah yang handle jewelry ya, jadi kayak toko emas gitu ya. Waktu ke luar negeri, saya dari dulu sampai 2011 itu tidak pernah bisa memberikan masukan tuh mental. Saya mikir, kenapa papi harus ada di toko itu terus? Kenapa enggak jalan-jalan aja, biarin toko yang ada handle? Jawabannya cuma satu. Kalau barang hilang gimana? Kau mau nanggung? Ya nggak mau lah. Ngapain? Oh saya nggak salah apa-apa. Kenapa saya disuruh nanggung? Nah, tetapi waktu ke luar negeri, saya cuma bilang gini. Waktu misalkan jalan-jalan kita lihat gerai misalnya LV lah, Hermes lah, atau kita ke jam Rolex misalkan ya. Nah, itu saya iseng bilang ini, Bibi, bisa nggak ya kita ketemu owner dari toko ini supaya kita bisa nego nih, siapa tahu dapat harga lebih murah lagi lah kan sama owner bisa gampang. Nah, jawaban papa saya cuma simpel, mana mungkin ada ownernya di sini. Lalu saya bilang, loh, kalau owner nggak ada, kenapa bisnisnya bisa jalan? Jadi di sini sebenarnya itu pertanyaan memancing ya. Jadi di sana akhirnya papa ngomong, mulai berpikir, saya nggak nanya, mikir kan nggak, saya pura-pura bego aja. Kenapa ya dia bisa ya? Padahal harganya itu 1 jam itu ratusan juta loh, puluhan juta. Nggak kalah dengan barang yang kita punya, emas. Kenapa dia bisa ya? Apa yang dia pakai? Nah, disinilah waktu jalan dia lebih bisa menerima karena mungkin ya refreshing, otaknya fresh segala macam, lebih bisa kita kasih masukan. Oh berarti ada sistem yang mereka buat sampai ownernya nggak perlu ada di tempat tapi bisnis bisa running. Ya, nah setelah itu baru saya masuk. Oh ya, building sistem bareng dengan prioritas bikin ortu bisa lebih punya banyak waktu. Jadi waktu itu saya masuk gini. Oh ya, mau nggak Pak? Kita buat sistem kayak orang itu. Di mana, jadi Pak, kita harus memprioritaskan orang tua dulu nih ya. Gimana caranya biar papi atau papa gitu ya, bisa punya banyak waktu, bisa jalanin hobi, misalkan golf, papi bisa golf seharian sama teman-teman, atau bisa ngopi, tapi bisa tetap running tanpa ada papi. Mau nggak kita coba pikirin gimana bikin sistemnya bareng-bareng? Nah, karena inilah akhirnya, baru menemukan, jadi sebenarnya ya intinya ya gimana cara kita menjelaskan istilahnya zaman sekarang seperti apa, sistem terbaru sekarang seperti apa dengan memberikan pandangan-pandangan dari luar. Karena kalau dari kita, kadang orang tua ya kita nggak ngomong ya, sometimes orang tua terhadap anak itu selalu menganggap ya anak tidak akan pernah dewasa, akan selalu jadi anak kecil dia, nggak salah, apalagi seorang ibu. Tetapi sometimes itu tercampur oleh bisnis gitu ya. Tidak jarang ya kakak saya pun yang pegang bisnis waktu itu bantu di supermarket itu pun tidak jarang sering diintervensi sampai kita pun sering meeting bareng bikin keluarga segala macam untuk kasih tahu nggak boleh adanya intervensi jika sudah diberikan wewenang apalagi direksi segala macam. Tapi dari semua ini saya cuma ngambil kesimpulan ya sebenarnya ada di gambar ini. Intinya adalah bagaimana seperti tadi ya Pak si Dr. Ho bilang bahwa bagaimana kita bisa dari yang atas, ini kan biasa bisnis yang atas kan gambar adalah bisnis orang tua nih, ya. Gimana kita bisa buat jadi yang bawah? Sistem and distribution channel-nya seperti apa, ya. Yang atas mungkin ya teman-teman tahu bahwa ya di sini mungkin yang buat, yang jaga pasti owner-nya. Tapi yang di bawah gimana tanpa owner itu bisa. Nah, gimana kita create the system. Bahkan yang bawah sekarang sudah bergeser, yang bawah jadi di atas, ya. Yang baru adalah gimana adanya disrupsi dalam industri bisnis, adanya digital, ya, jadi e-commerce segala macam, jadi fintech. Nah, gimana kita mengaplikasikan itu dan membuat orang tua itu mengerti adanya teknologi seperti itu. Jadi disinilah ya mungkin di sini sedikit saya sharing sama teman-teman pengalaman saya pribadi apa yang terjadi dulu dengan sekarang, ya. Dan yang paling penting sekarang juga tidak kalah penting ada satu video yang terakhir yang saya mau sharing buat teman-teman. Yuk kita lihat.
Every day I ask myself, what will I do differently today to be and do better than yesterday? Yes, listening is the least I can do to understand the needs of others. Because every person's story is different. One day they struggle, the next day they find joy. At the end of the day, I believe we are our own heroes. Whenever I'm feeling uncertain, meeting many people doing their job passionately with sincere smile, it's very inspiring to rise up and be grateful. Health is the one source of power that will keep us doing what we love. Health is sometimes what we take for granted. Health is what brings us closer. Health is love. Love is the reason to choose the right things to do, not only for our own good, but for the people we treasure the most.
Oke, jadi stay healthy buat teman-teman semua, stay safe, and thank you. Saya kembalikan ke Monica.
Wow, let's give a round of applause untuk Pak Randy Setiawan.
Ya, semoga
Terima kasih,
bermanfaat.
Pak Randy.
Thank you semuanya.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we will now we'll discuss about the materials presented by our speakers, Dr. Hao and also Pak Randy. We will let the participants to join the forum by sending your questions through the Zoom chat column. So all of you could join. If there's still questions in your mind, you could type it in the chat column. And the speakers will be answering those questions. So before I will ask some questions to our speakers, I would like to ask the opinion of Professor John Vong as the Program Leader MM in Sustainable Development Kalbis Institute. Professor John Vong, are you with us? Okay, I think
Professor John Fong have another meeting. Apologize for it.
Okay, John Vong, Professor John Fong already joined with us, but right now he has another meeting. I would like to ask the opinion from Bapak Naik Henok Parmenas. Pak John, are you with us?
Yes, Monica, I'm still here and watching all the materials given by the speakers.
Wow, you just like what you said, we need to write down what we learn, what we'll listen, and we will implement it. But I would like to listen from you, your opinion about the materials that's presented by our speakers today.
All right, so I will use Bahasa Indonesia, okay? So thank you so much, Dr. Hall, for untuk presentasi Dr. Hall. It's really align dengan apa yang ada di dalam referensi yang saya baca ya. Kemudian Pak Randy ya, Pak Randy, saya ngerasa kayak temannya anaknya teman-teman saya lagi curhat kepada bapaknya.
Ya begitulah.
Ya, jadi ini real banget ya. Saya komentari mungkin lebih banyak ke Pak Randy karena ini actual sekali apa yang terjadi, karena saya handle juga beberapa teman-teman dengan anaknya yang nggak bisa cooperate ya, karena nggak nyambung cara pikirnya antara baby boomers sama millennials ya, karena mereka punya different backgrounds ya. Orang tuanya nyekolahin jauh-jauh ke luar negeri, kamu sekolah ya, dengan harapan anaknya itu bisa melanjutkan usaha bapaknya, tapi waktu datang anaknya tiba-tiba karena pride-nya dia, oke ya, Papa, aku mau menggunakan metode aku. Kalau nggak dikasih cara, ya udah Papa kerjanya sendiri daripada gue disalah-salahin ya itu. So, saya teringat kembali apa anak-anaknya dari teman saya itu ngomong langsung kepada saya. Dia bilang, Pak John, tuh kasih tahu ke Papi ya. Papi terus begini-begini. So, saya merasa anak-anak itu lagi ngomong lagi ke saya nih melalui Pak Randy ya. Tapi itu yang harus diselesaikan saya rasa ya, karena kalau itu nggak diberesin antara orang tua sama anak, mungkin family business-nya nggak bisa berubah tadi dari seperti gambar Pak Randy ya, yang bawah sama yang atas ya, mungkin yang atas nggak akan bisa berubah jadi yang di bawah karena nggak matching sama sekali gitu. So mungkin saya akan bertanya, boleh nggak bertanya nih Monica nih?
Yes, of course, Pak John. Silakan.
Alright, mungkin untuk lebih interaktif gitu ya, before saya punya kesempatan lebih besar mungkin untuk bertanya sekarang. Cuma saya ingin mendengar opinions dari Dr. Howe dan juga Pak Randy. Saya mau membandingkan antara keutuhan keluarga dengan profit. Togetherness as family and then the profit. Sometimes we have to choose between the togetherness in a family, togetherness as a family, and then the profit. Sometimes, yeah, I want profit, I want a family togetherness, but sometimes maybe we have to choose between those. It is good if we can get the togetherness between family, and also we can get the profit, but it's not easy to get that. Kalau sampai kita harus memilih, ini kadang-kadang happen. This is really happen story. Ya, apa yang harus kita pilih? So what we have to choose, family or profit, because this is always be a polemic in family business. Maybe Dr. Howe, you can enlighten me, and Pak Randy also. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Dr. Howe and Randy.
Oh, thank you, Pak John. Can I call you address you as Pak John?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, very good question. Usually, just like I have only 20 minutes. If you got 1 hour, then I can brief more in detail. Now, this is the most challenge. You know, you want to balance both. It's not that easy, but I myself, I managed to do that. You know, the first thing is the understanding. As I would say, anything you do, you need a very clear understanding. If you say your family were involved in the business, if you do not understand, meaning you have to put in at home. You know, you are not going to involve any business in the company. You see, most of the time, you know, the family business, they mix up the whole idea what the family matter and the business matter. Now, when you mix up, and then you have a lot of dilemma. You know, when you bring back all the problem, back at home, and then you start talking about the problem in the company. And even then, you bring your family problem also bring back to the company. That's why anything we do, we need to set a very clear cut line who actually is supposed to involve in what area. You know, after that, when you're back home, we do not talk about anything about the business. Only when we have a council member set at a time, that is the time we talk about the business. That's why it's also talk about the time management, you know, the clarity of the among the stakeholder or the stakeholder. And a lot of people do not understand. This is the mentality, the problem, the mindset problem. After you know the root cause of the problem, from my experience, I know the way the solution, then to me it's easier. But we have to go through all the unnecessary problem. You know, it's all boils down to the mindset, as I mentioned earlier. Anything is talking about our mind. As you know, our mind was controlled by our brain. You know, we bring back to the past, and then we think of the past, and then the future have not actually started, then we are so worried about the future. So what I'm trying to say, we focus on what we are doing now and produce them, then our goal is going to be very clear. Then profit will come, and then we have a harmonious family. That's why I used to travel before the COVID-19. I promised my family we have to travel the world 4 times a year, without anything about any business. And then we also set a family time schedule every quarterly. Then we have to fly to other country, to brainstorm with the council member. And then by the time we talk about business, then we also have time to relax. This is how to balance. This is my way of doing things. And most of the time, I advise to all my associates. They are following now. Everyone is happily. That's why I look young. Actually, I'm not young. Yeah. But I'm 58. Almost close to 60. Next year, I'm 59. I look young. Okay, but this is my experience. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you look young, Dr. Hao.
Young, but age not young. Yeah.
Yes.
And this one is young. I think it's about early 30. Yeah.
Okay, I think I will ask Pak Randy also to answer Pak John's question.
Oke.
Silakan Pak Randy.
Memang ya di dalam tadi pertanyaan antara kebersamaan dengan bisnis itu hal yang sulit untuk bertemu, tetapi bukan berarti tidak bisa. Dan sebenarnya jawaban saya in my personal opinion itu kurang lebih hampir sama dengan Dr. Hao. Jadi yang paling pertama memang understanding is the most important thing. Tetapi yang tidak kalah penting itu adalah bagaimana kita menyamakan dulu skala prioritas di dalam family. Misalkan ini skala prioritasnya setiap orang akan berbeda-beda. Contoh misalkan saya skala prioritasnya adalah uang misalkan pertama karena masih develop the business. Sedangkan mungkin family members lebih ngerasa prioritas utama adalah keluarga. Nah di sini tidak akan bisa ketemu. Makanya ada baiknya kita saling mengerti, saling membicarakan bahwa skala prioritas keluarga kita ini apa dulu nih. Either big family atau enggak. Kalau memang skala prioritas kita adalah make money, jadi sama-sama mengerti, oke, berarti untuk saat ini kita harus memprioritaskan adalah make money dulu. Bukan berarti sama sekali nggak ada togetherness, kan itu bisa dibicarakan dan bisa dinego lah ya, kira-kira ada jadwal nggak, misalkan setahun sekali, setahun 4 kali seperti tadi Dr. Ho bilang. Tetapi itu semua harus dibicarakan. Jadi kuncinya bisa dibilang communication, tetapi lebih ke arah bagaimana kita sama-sama mengerti bahwa skala prioritas keluarga kita ini apa. Karena jangan sampai gini, oke, kita mau family, tetapi dalam kondisi sekarang background keluarga, uang nggak ada, terus gimana? Kalau nggak kerja, mau family, mau jalan-jalan kemana? Mau ke Singapura nggak bisa, bisanya cuma ke Bali, misalnya kan bosan, misalkan kalau ke Bali terus. Nah, tetapi kalau skala prioritas kita sudah ditentukan bahwa, oke, saat ini kondisi bahwa kita sedang lagi mau cari uang dulu nih. Ya udah, skala prioritasnya adalah uang. Biar keluarga juga mengerti. Jadi kalau seandainya kata ada meeting atau apa, karena skala prioritas yang pertama adalah uang, it's okay. Jalan aja meeting. Jadi sebagai pasangan, sebagai family members, mereka juga bisa mengerti kondisinya seperti apa. Gitu. Tetapi pada saat nanti mungkin skalanya dalam 5 tahun ke depan sudah berubah karena sudah making money dan sudah bisa mulai ada longgar sedikit dan bisa skala prioritas adalah family. Nah itu baru bisa dibicarakan lagi seperti itu. Itu sih kalau saya pribadi, in my opinion, seperti itu.
Thank you, Pak Randy and Dr. Hao. Pak John, is the explanations answered your question, or do you have any opinions too?
Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Randy and Dr. Hao for enlightenment. Thank you so much, Monica.
Okay, thank you, Pak John. And ladies and gentlemen, right now, there's a question coming from the question and answer column. It's from the participants. One of the participants would like to ask to any of the speakers, should fresh graduates work outside the family business or jump straight to family business? I think I would like to ask Dr. Hao to answer first. Please, Dr. Hao.
As I mentioned earlier, now this is the problem I always advise any of your family business. If you are just graduate, never ever jump to your own family business. That is going to be a big mistake. You know why? Because without knowing the outside world, the culture of other, you can make any mistakes to other company, but not your own company. You know, when your father want to pass a business to you, the moment you are not experienced enough in the takeover, that is a disaster for your entire empire. Now, because no matter what, then the problem, you guys, let's say when you start graduate and your father asks you to join back, the company. The next one, if you want to engage professional people to come to join your company, most 99%, for those like just graduate, they will invite their own classmate or the friend to join the top management team. Then you have the crash with the father who actually the pioneer staff in the company and the new one. This is always happen in the company. And then you have crash with your father, and then your friend or your colleague, your classmate, would tell the old guys, who I am very close to the son of the boss. You should listen to me. And then the old star pioneer say, I'm the founder and the pioneer have been for 20 years. Who are you? And then from then, dilemma happened. So I always advise, never ever thought of when you graduate and then strictly back to your father business. No, they have to work at least 5 years. You have to at least 5 years, at least you learn. And the most important thing is to look for the company where actually have the same business as what your family business is doing. Then you also look at the thing. And then you will define what are the competitive advantage of your family business. And from there, you know the market. Yeah. Simple answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we should learn at least 5 years,
5 years.
in another companies. Yes. Okay. I would like to ask Pak Randy. Pak Randy, do you have the same opinion like Dr. Hao?
Mungkin kalau saya pribadi sedikit berbeda ya. Saya pribadi akan tanyakan dulu kepada teman-teman, misalkan sebelum kamu terjun ke dunia bisnis, tanyakan pada dirimu apa yang kamu mau dulu. Apakah menjalankan bisnis keluarga adalah itu mau kamu? Kalau bukan mau kamu, please don't. Ngerti ya? Maksudnya kamu cari tahu dulu apa yang kamu mau dalam hidupmu. Kalaupun misalkan jangan sampai gini, sometimes nih ya, sebagai millennials gitu, kadang sometimes kita terpaksa. Yang kita nggak mau, tapi kita dipaksa. Lain halnya kalau, oh ya memang aku mau loh jalanin bisnis orang tua. Nah kalau saya pribadi, apakah fresh graduate itu harus kerja di perusahaan company orang tua dulu atau di luar dulu? Kalau saya pribadi, alangkah lebih bagus memang benar di luar, seperti Dr. Ho. Tetapi kalaupun memang mau di perusahaan orang tua, it's okay. Tapi karena tidak bisa digabungkan antara family dengan bisnis ya. Jadi kamu harus start dari bawah. Kalau bagi saya ya. Jadi misalkan kalau kamu mau belajar bagaimana perusahaan orang tua, kamu harus start from paling benar-benar from basic. Ya, either kamu jadi tukang pel atau kamu jadi tukang angkat barang, it's okay. Biar tahu bahwa oh ternyata ini yang terjadi di dalam perusahaan, walaupun dia bukan selamanya jadi tukang pel ya. Jadi ya, tukang pel dulu, nanti naik lagi jadi apa. Jadi dia diberikan tanggung jawab dari paling kecil sampai paling tinggi. Sehingga pada saat dia nanti memimpin, dia tahu apa yang terjadi di bawah. Bukan yang langsung, oke, kamu langsung jadi direksi, yang which is, I don't know what to do in this company. I don't know what my task. Kayak gitu. Jadi saya pribadi tergantung dari pribadi orang itu masing-masing. Gitu.
Okay, so I concluded actually, so it's somehow different opinion from Dr. Hao, but somehow similar because it's actually like Pak Randy wanted the fresh graduates to jump into the family business, but they are not managing the family business actually, but they work on the business. Just like Dr. Hao taught us or said to us, mentioned to us that we need to at least work about 5 years before managing or really manage the family business. That's what I concluded. Is there any other opinion from Dr. Hao about that?
Yeah, besides, I do agree about what Randy said, but it depends on the situation. In Malaysia, 99% of the company, when the son graduated, and then straight joined, even that you don't empower him, but others teammate, the manager, the top manager might treat him as a spy. The father put him as a spy. Then it will create an unhealthy atmosphere as well. And so he said, this is the son of the boss, so we need to respect, but this guy know nothing. Then a lot of gossiping, or pinpointing, then it create a very unhealthy atmosphere. That happened in Malaysia. But to me, it's yes or no. It's depend. The family is what you want. End of the day, the ultimate goal, what you want. Are you ready? If you plan that, okay, after 5 years, 10 years, I want him to be my successor. And then are he also willing to take over my business? If you do not actually willing to take my business, no matter how you put him, end of the day he will run away.
Yes.
You know, you just want to have a 9 to 5 job. You know, maybe it's at night you go for karaoke, a nightclub, then the next day morning you sleep until 12 o'clock. That happening in Malaysia. This is the most problem in Malaysia, family business owner. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Hao and Pak Randy, let's move on to another question from the participants. I would like to read the question. I would like to merge actually 2 questions into 1 question because it's actually similar. So from Jovan Davidson and Aditya Permana. So Jovan asked that I want to know about your opinion about this problem. As we all know, because it's a family business, sometimes the parents used to mix between personal business and company business. How do we handle that case? And another question I would like to merge is from Aditya Permana. How do you maintain your feelings and emotions when you want to talk objectively to someone in your family who works on family business when they are doing wrong? Did you give them a tolerance or treat them objectively like the others? So I merged this both of this question because it's somehow similar. Please, Dr. Hao, you could
Randy,
answer.
you want to answer first or? Okay, again, this is a common problem. You know, when you think about business, you refer to what kind of personal business? Is it a personal affair? You know, to me, very straightforward. If a founder, I know he's very clear about what the difference between personal and a company, but I don't know what actually refer to personal. I suppose refer to the personal affair. Maybe he got a girlfriend, and then he have a mistress work in the company. He do not how to differentiate the business between personal and company. I'm not sure what actually personal business he is referring to, because when the father have a company, whatever personal business is the family business. Maybe you have a holding company, you know, and then they have a many subsidiary company. Are you saying that this family business holding company is the family business, the subsidiary company is a person's business? I don't know what does it mean. But to me, very clear, you know, you have to differentiate, you know, make it clearly what do you mean by personal and a company. When you have a company, family business, as I mentioned earlier, you need a very clear shareholder agreement to well specify respective shareholder responsibility. I'm talking about the ownership. If you have a clear line, then you don't have any problem about personal or company business. Only when you do not well specify in your shareholder agreement, then you're gonna pay wholehearted. You know. The second question is that what question was that? Second question, look at
So the second question is about
emotion.
Yes. Do we need to talk objectively to someone in your family who works on the family business when they're doing wrong, or just say it's okay?
Always the case. Now, when people are emotion, your perception, you thought that other party are wrong, but ask yourself how you determine the other party are wrong. You know, that's why we always think about you have to look at the angle or other party angle. You know, for those, I'm sure I've encountered people that, you know, you always know what to talk but no action. Now then, we call this become a very deception, meaning no matter what, he would not reckon actually he had done wrong. So that's how the ambiguous, the dilemma happened. Now for me, now when you come to emotion, always because of your brain, we have a so-called cognitive bias. You know, when what we heard and what we actually look at it is different, then our brain actually will control our mind. Then after our brain control our mind, then we control our emotion, then we have different thinking. This is talking about all the bias. Again, no, I'm sure none of us actually, when we are making wrong, are we actually admit we are wrong or not? Normally we don't. Then it depends on the situation, then you have to justify to say that this is wrong. You have to prove to the guy, you know, you are wrong. You know, even you can challenge, but normally for me, if I were to challenge with my director, I know that is wrong. And then I would not challenge until I got the evidence to show that now this is wrong. And then what are the consequences? That's normally how I balance the problem you mentioned. Okay, Monica?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ho. And I would like to ask Pak Randy also to answer the same question.
Okay, untuk the first question itu gimana caranya kita menyadari ya orang tua kan kadang mix between personal businesses and company businesses. Sebenarnya memang it's not easy ya. Ini untuk millennials ini membutuhkan membutuhkan pengertian sebenarnya. Jadi kayak kalau seandainya kata kita sebagai millennials nggak mau belajar juga, kita nggak akan paham apa yang terjadi saat ini di mix antara personal and company. Itu kita nggak akan tahu karena kita belum paham dalam bisnis itu seperti apa sih yang terjadi. Oh, ternyata kalau seandainya kata seperti ini dengan begini itu harusnya seperti apa. Jadi kalau kita tidak punya pemahaman dalam segi bisnis system, kita nggak akan sadar ini. Dia antara mix antara personal atau company bisnis, kita nggak sadar. Jadi yang bisa dilakukan adalah sebagai millennials ya harus mau banyak belajar ya, terutama baca buku, sehingga kita jadi bisa memilah, oh this is personal, oh this is company. Jadi kalau sama orang tua, saya cenderung anak yang suka orang tua itu sedikit gampang emosional, jadi kayak gampang tertrigger, apalagi kalau anaknya ngomong ya. Nah, tetapi saya berusaha mencari komunikasi yang enak supaya saya bisa kasih masukan. Jadi ada waktu saya ngomong heart to heart dengan orang tua, saya bilang, Mam, menurut Mami, menurut Papi itu kalau seperti ini tuh bagaimana? Jadi menjelaskan ulang apa yang terjadi supaya dia bisa lihat, oke, this is personal, this is business. Itu kalau dari saya ya, dari pertanyaan pertama. Karena kalau kita ngomong bahwa oh bisa begini, ya kalau seandainya kata kamu udah paham. Kalau belum paham nggak akan ngerti, pasti nggak akan ngerti. Misalkan nih sekarang teman-teman di sini ada yang belum paham tentang namanya distribution channel atau distribution chain system seperti apa. Nah pada saat orang tua membahas tentang itu, kalau kita nggak ngerti, kita nggak bisa kasih masukan. Kita cuma bisa menerima, oh ya terima aja deh dulu deh, sebagai ya aku tahu nggak tahu, aku terima dulu deh. Tetapi pada saat kita lebih banyak pengalaman, kita lebih banyak tahu tentang namanya bisnis itu seperti apa, di sanalah kita bisa belajar, oh this is personal, oh this is company matters gitu loh. Itu kalau yang dari pertama. Jadi saya jawabnya gimana caranya, how do we handle that case? Ya, you have to learn about the business. Apa yang terjadi di dalam bisnis, ya you have to learn about it. Jadi sebelum kita tahu ngejudge bahwa oh this is personal, oh this is company matters, ya kita harus paham dulu apa yang terjadi. Itu sih. Yang pertama. Kalau kedua, gimana caranya maintain your feeling and emotion? Ini terjadi di company saya. Saya jadi kayak kakak sepupu saya itu yang handle sebagai managers di salah satu my company. Sometimes ya memang dia buat kesalahan yang sampai saya gergetan gitu. Kenapa sih buat salah? Tapi apakah bisa kita tegur atau tidak? Di sini saya biasanya memberikan penjelasan bahwa sebelum ngomong saya akan memposisikanku di sini, saya akan berbicara selaku kita akan berbicara bisnis. Tidak ada family, kita singkirkan dulu family. Nah, tapi di sana saya tidak menegur, tapi saya hanya bertanya, dengan apa yang kamu melakukan, menurut kamu ini benar atau salah? Jadi saya lebih ke arah, saya pengen dianya paham, apakah dia tahu yang dia lakukan itu salah atau benar. Kalau dia tahu, saya akan tanya, menurut kamu, apa yang harus kamu lakukan? Tapi kalau dia nggak tahu, kita mau marahin juga percuma, karena dia nggak tahu dia salah apa. Nah, jadi kalau dia nggak tahu dia salah apa, ya saya kasih tahu. Jadi sebenarnya ini yang terjadi. Nah, kalau ini dilanjutkan, akan dampaknya seperti ini. Jadi saya encourage lagi, maukah Koko untuk melakukan hal seperti ini? Mau nggak abang atau kakak melakukan yang seperti ini, supaya ke depan tidak terjadi lagi hal-hal seperti ini. Sudah selesai, that's it. Begitu sudah selesai urusan pekerjaan atau bisnis, saya langsung hilangkan urusan bisnis, saya langsung menganggap dia seperti saudara lagi, saya ngajak dia. Jadi saya yang harus menunjukkan bahwa saya bisa menyampingkan yang mana bisnis, yang mana family, gitu sih.
Baik, thank you Pak Randy. Let's move on to another question from Xavier Karsten. Do we need to add a family business major in university or institute? Because we know to run the business that we need knowledge about that, and many business do not survive into the third generation like me. So like Xavier Karsten, how sad is it? Are this important to do? I think I will ask Pak John, Pak Henok Parmenas to answer the question because it's somehow about the education sector, about the university or institute. Pak Henok, Pak John, please answer the question. Silakan, Pak.
Thank you, Monica. So it's interesting creations actually, because this is why we would like to conduct this webinar actually right now. Because in my experience and in my study, there's not much of university can elaborate about the family business. To tell you the truth, all the family businesses that I know, actually, they not get those experience in school or educations, right? So, Pak Randy, you have your family business. You are not studying your family business in any schools, right? We never got this in higher educations, or right? Pak Randy, betul ya?
Yes, true, betul.
Nggak diajarin di university. Maybe not much university can share about this theory or this experience. Me as educator see it as opportunity and as a needs. Saya melihat ini sebagai satu kebutuhan yang harus dipenuhi. So, like I said, educations itu harusnya menjadi jembatan, the bridge between the real business and educations. So, saya justru mempromosikan ini supaya bisa dibawa ke dalam kelas. Ya, I think banyak sekali orang tua yang mengirimkan anaknya ke sekolah, ke university. I'm sure about this. Karena orang tua memiliki keinginan anaknya itu meneruskan bisnisnya. Tetapi anak tidak diperlengkapi dengan cara bagaimana meneruskan bisnis orang tua. Ya, so it's really true. Ya, sekali lagi saya bilang, orang tua mengirimkan anak sekolah sampai jauh-jauh ke luar negeri, sampai ke LA, ke California, because orang tua berpikir bahwa sometimes after come back for good, bisa meneruskan bisnisnya. Tapi apa yang terjadi? Ternyata waktu udah balik ya, Pak Randy ya, nggak mau nerusin bisnisnya. Ngapain gua nerusin ini bisnis orang tua jualan mie, jualan bakso. Padahal jualan mie-nya itu luar biasa banget gitu ya. Saya punya
nguliahin anak dia ke Amerika ya.
Iya, bisa nguliahin anaknya gitu sampai ke Amerika gitu. Saya punya langganan makan kepiting gede banget di Kalimantan. Karena salah satu bisnis dari perusahaan yang pernah saya pegang itu ada di tambang di Kalimantan. Jadi saya makan di satu restoran kepiting. Kepiting gede banget dan enak sekali ya. Lalu saya tanya, Ci, karena waktu itu this lady yang bantu kita, anaknya sekolah di mana? Oh, yang satu di Jakarta, yang satu di Amerika. Wow, itu biayanya besar loh untuk sekolahin anak sampai ke Amerika, sampai ke Jakarta. Tapi mereka tuh dapat duit hanya bikin restoran kepiting di Kalimantan. Tapi kalau saya tanya sama anaknya, lu kalau udah balik lagi dari Jakarta sama dari Amerika, kira-kira mau terusin nggak tuh restoran kepiting? Ya, itu satu teguran ya. So I would like to promote this new streaming atau mungkin jadi program study atau apapun itu yang bentuknya diformulize di dalam satu forma educations. Ya, mungkin nggak jadi satu program study, tapi I promote this supaya every students itu tahu bagaimana to follow up family business supaya bisa berkembang dan bisa mengeducate dengan cara yang wise, dengan cara yang hormat gitu. Cara hormat ke orang tua, tapi bisnisnya juga bisa jalan. So yes, I want to promote this to be in institutional educations about family business. Thank you, Monica.
Wow.
Saya boleh nambahkan nggak ya?
Yes,
ini
silakan Pak Randy.
tentang ini ya. Ini sebenarnya kalau saya sendiri saya setuju ya. Maksudnya berdasarkan pengalaman, I will share one of my experience ya with client ya. Jadi ada klien yang memang dia partner, dia bisnis berpartneran. Misalnya, let's say saya dengan Pak John, kita partneran, kita buat bisnis. Saya mau partner dengan Pak John karena saya melihat pribadi Pak John. Tetapi kita nggak tahu in the future what will happen between Pak John and me. Bisa aja dari salah satu dari kita, misalkan Pak John, let's say kata Pak John mau partneran sama saya karena saya ini pribadinya bisa bertanggung jawab segala macam karena saya. Tapi what if ternyata saya duluan jalan nih. Berarti kan bisnis partnering ini akan istilahnya diwariskan ke istri saya dong. Nah, sedangkan Pak John, aku nggak setuju kalau istrinya bakal nerusin. Karena aku nggak kenal dan aku nggak nyambung sama istrinya. Karena selama ini istrinya nggak pernah pegang bisnis, yang ada istrinya cuma ibu rumah tangga, misalkan seperti itu. Nah, banyak orang yang tidak tahu bahwa ternyata ada loh solution-nya yang bisa dilakukan. Jadi untuk win-win solution jika itu terjadi. Nah, hal-hal ini tidak diajarkan di dalam kuliah gitu loh. Dan banyak orang nggak tahu sampai akhirnya, wah, jadi takut dalam melakukan sebuah bisnis. Padahal ini sebuah opportunity yang bagus gitu loh. Gitu sih. Misalkan mereka bisa aja kok ngambil mekanisme solution kayak misalkan bisa buatin perjanjian atau pembelian buy and sell agreement atau mau pakai keyman insurance serah, tetapi hal-hal itu yang mereka nggak tahu ternyata bisa dilakukan dalam menyelesaikan masalah seperti ini gitu.
Yes, I believe many of the people are excited about this family business major in the university or institute. Let's move on to one last question from.
So, Monica, can I say something about the education?
Oh, yes. Okay, you would
Actually,
like to.
I also own my
yes.
my education, so I can put it on what Pak John and Randy say. Always remember the audience. Always remember what I'm saying now. Just to summarize what Pak John and Randy said. Education is the most powerful tool to change the world. Remember, education is the most powerful tool to change the world. That's all.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Hao, I would like you to answer one last question from the participants from Yike Feliana. If the family business become a listed company, do you think as an investor, the controlling family shareholders provide positive or negative effect to the company? In considering there are two hypotheses regarding this, alignment and entrenchment effects. Please.
I look at the question, I don't know what kind of hypothesis is talking about. Now, I try to figure out this question, when a public company, how's the confidence they think, or the investor. Now, to me, again, a public company is not whether you're a family business or private limited when you go for public. Everything you know to act according to the corporate governance. You cannot do anything like even you give a press release. Now, you talk about confidence levels. Now, family business, most of the problem why the investor do not feel confident, they might doubt that all the family is control the whole entire business. But don't forget, any public company, they have an independent director to look after the interest of the company. Monica, you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, as an investor, for the case study in Malaysia, during the past 1 or 2 years, you found it very, very strange. Those companies who have a fundamental will make a tons of profit, but the share market is going down and down and down. For those companies who do not make money, and then the share market is going up. So my question was that, how does this investor, the confidence level, how actually they invest the share of the company? Again, it's all, to me, some is monopoly by the foreign fund and all that kind of thing. Now, the question when they ask, what I can tackle is that, for the confidence of the investor, regardless whether the company is only owned by the family or the public, the covenant need to follow, and then end of the day, people are going to see how your company are scalable, or your company are profitable. People look at the fundamental of the company. It's nothing about whether family or private. And most importantly, remember that, especially in Indonesia, I would say 90% of the listed company is family owned. Now, if the investors do not feel confident, how can that public listed company, 90% owned by the family business, can doing so well? Yeah, that's what my simple answer is that. Yeah.
Thank you,
Pak
Dr.
Menteri?
Ho.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Ho and Pak Randy and also Pak John, we're reaching the end of our discussion. May you please deliver your closing statement. We will start from Dr. Ho and then Pak Randy and then last but not least, Pak John. Please, Dr. Ho.
Sorry again, I didn't hear you again. Sorry.
I would like to ask you to deliver your closing statement, Doctor. Yes.
Simple. As you know that when we know that the family business always got problem, but I feel proud, being a Chinese or being an Indonesian Chinese, especially you compare Malaysia. I think we have a good relation, business tie with both Indonesia and Malaysia. Now, to get a summary today, the topic is about family business. No matter what, if you want to start a family business, the communication, as what just now about Randy said, communication is very important. Then do a right thing the first time before even you think about successor. The understanding each other needs and want what actually we want from the family business. That's what I'm going to say. And also, again, I tell everybody, don't forget, education is the most powerful tool to change the world. No matter what, I think you have to get involved in the education. That's how you learn. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. And next for the closing statement, please, Pak Randy.
Ya, sebenarnya ya mungkin mirip ya. Jadi buat teman-teman millennials ya, nggak usah terbebani ya, tidak usah terlalu judging juga bahwa apa yang akan terjadi, apakah aku suka atau tidak. Tetapi buat saya millennials masih muda, waktu kita masih banyak. Jadi just make mistakes. It's okay, make mistakes, terus explore everything. Nanti setelah kamu tahu apa yang kamu mau, just do, fokus, dan benar-benar ya achieve your dream gitu loh.
Dare to feel.
Yeah, yeah, dare
to feel, be the challenge.
Yes.
Okay.
Ya, jadi gitulah.
Thank you, Pak Randy. And last but not least, please, Pak John, deliver your closing statement.
Thank you, Monica. Bapak, Ibu, teman-teman, kadang kita mendikotomikan antara teori dan praktek. Terkadang kita membagi dua antara mana yang teori, mana yang praktek. Kadang waktu kita kuliah, kita bilang, itu terlalu teori. Tapi saya mau menerangkan bahwa apa yang kita pelajari di dalam kampus, khususnya di Kalbis Institute, kita nggak melulu membicarakan mengenai teori. Mengenai praktek seperti Family Business Forum ini pun kita akan bawa, karena kita tahu bahwa teori itu berasal dari praktek, dan praktek itu merupakan awal dari teori. So, itu akan menjadi blended sekali antara teori dan praktek, dan itu yang akan kita lakukan di Kalbis. Dan saya berharap, sama seperti tadi pertanyaan dari Xavier, kita berharap mengenai family business ini pun kita akan embedded di dalam formal education kita, sehingga bisa mencerdaskan banyak orang, sehingga akan banyak sekali family business yang terselamatkan, ya. Dan ini akan memperbaiki ekonomi yang ada di Indonesia. That's all from me. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Pak John. And once again, I would like to say thank you to Pak Randy and Dr. Ho. Thank you for the inspiring stories and also for showing us different perspective about the business, family business. And even though this discussion is done virtually, but ladies and gentlemen, let's still give a round of applause for our great speakers today.
Sure, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we'll end this webinar, let us take a picture together virtually. Please get ready and give your best pose. In the count of 3, the screen will be captured. Please get ready, everyone. I'll start counting. 3, 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again to all of our speakers and also all participants. I'm Monica Canado, your host. Would like to apologize for any mistakes. Let's meet again in the next Family Business Forum. Goodbye and see you again.
You guys, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Pak John. Thank you, Dr. Ho.
See you
Thank
again.
you, Pak Randy. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ho.
Saya Chandra Yap, Wakil Sekjen Perhimpunan INTI, mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Kalbi Institute atas kerjasama kedatangan MOU hari ini yang merupakan langkah maju bagi INTI dan Kalbi untuk memajukan pendidikan anak-anak Indonesia, khususnya dalam bidang penelitian dan pelayanan masyarakat yang memang sudah menjadi bidang Kalbi. Buat kami ini adalah satu kebanggaan juga dan juga satu kehormatan bisa bekerja sama, dan tentunya ke depan kita bisa membuat macam-macam kemajuan untuk negara ini. Terima kasih.